Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We are going to be doing some of our, normal healing slash meditation, and we're going to do a little bit deeper dive of auric programming. And first, the aura, right? The aura is the energy that surrounds your body. It's an energetic mold or blueprint that your physical body follows, right? So if you have, mm, say you have a bad shoulder, that issue is not only in the aura, it was in the aura before it was in the shoulder. Even if it was that you slipped and fell and hurt your shoulder, that slip and fall is still in your energy body to a certain extent, or at least the injury itself. And so a lot of times when we go through and we're trying to tackle some sort of health issue, or maybe we have a little anxiety, or we have um, some emotion like anger or something coming up. We just have patterns in our life. Some of it is in our energy centers, and some of it is in our mind and our emotions and things like this. But a big component of it is actually in the aura. And if that is the molder blueprint, as much as we go through and we clear something and we move through something, if it's still stuck in the aura, right? If it's still stuck in the aura, then eventually it's going to physicalize again. And then to take it a step further, there's different aspects or components to the aura. And the component that I want to talk about tonight and for a little bit is there's like programs that run in the aura. Sometimes you could say it's tied to genetics, could be tied to conditioning, could be tied to past experiences, projections from other people, our environment, even our karma to a certain extent. But there's ways to go through and flesh out some of this programming so that it goes from running a negative program to cultivating a potential positive program, right? And so we've touched on this before, but we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive. So this is what I would like you to do. Think of an area, be it in your body, even if it's some emotional pattern or thought process, or some sort of interaction with the environment. The environment being a person, an active situation, a past event, that maybe weighs on you. And the issue here is that part of our program, it might be a negative experience that we're having, but if that program is in the aura, in a way, it maintains that negative experience. It doesn't allow us to grow. It doesn't allow us to evolve. So a lot of this comes from the intellect and how we respond to different types of stimuli. And so when we talk about doing three brains and cultivating intuition, it's more than just I have an intuition that I should do this or I should do that, or I have some deeper insight. Intuition is another way of saying healing. Intuition is tied to the right side of the brain where we process information from the soul. And the intellect is more of how we process things of the lower nature. And really, we're shooting for harmony between the two, not one or the other. When we have too much intellect and not very much intuition, we tend to stay in a holding pattern in health issues and emotional mental issues. And even when we look at things with other people, there's still a behavioral component to this that is still tied to your physiology. So with this information, what do we do about it? Like, it's a great thing to kind of hear and understand, but now what? Right? So we're going to go through and we're going to unwind some of this programming, right? It helps us with the three brain work that we've been doing, and it helps us also with doing a deeper cleanse of the energy centers and chakras that we've also been doing. So what I'd like you to do is just reflect on the area in your life where you wish for healing. And with this aspect, you're reflecting. At first, reflect and then continue your reflection with your awareness on the center of your chest, the heart. The heart is the key to the first set of processes. Just think whatever you'd like to address. You don't have to figure out all the details. Just go, you know what? This bothers me. You don't have to know why. You don't have to need to know the outcome. Just identify these are issues I'd like to resolve. So spend a moment reflecting. Your awareness is on the center of your chest. Okay, now just let it go. Your awareness is on your feet. Your awareness on your feet, you no need to think about anything anymore. You're simply just having your awareness on your feet. Move your awareness up to the bottom of your tailbone. Your awareness is on the bottom of your tailbone. You're taking a few long, slow, deep breaths. Now, go to the left side of your body below your ribs. This is in the area of the spleen. Your awareness is going to be on the left side of your body, just below your ribs. Just get it somewhere in that area. Now, move your awareness to your low back, the backside of your navel. And then the top of your head, the crown. Now just be still. Just let it go for a moment. Just be still. Now, let's talk about a little bit about what we just did. It's not the whole technique, but let's just talk about it so we have some understanding. So first, your awareness is on your feet. This is doing a few things. For one, it's getting you a little bit more in your body. Sometimes the issue is there's a little bit of a disconnect between the mind and the body. There's actually even healing modalities that, in the name of healing, actually do things to disconnect the connection or diminish the connection between the mind and body. And what they do is they cause dissociation, which means, dissociation is the best way I can describe it is, those times where you go to the dentist and it's not going to be a pleasant experience. You're there for an hour, but you kind of check out a little bit and you're only there for, it seems like, for 5 minutes, but that whole hour went by. That's dissociation, right? And so what happens is we start running on autopilot, automatic behaviors, automatic thinking, where we don't really process it. We don't really make choices. We just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. And this is actually tied to the intellect. The intellect doesn't really resolve things, it maintains things, right? So if we have a health issue, it does its best to try to maintain whatever is going on there. And in a way, it doesn't really judge it as good or bad. It just, if there's discomfort, it tries to diminish the discomfort, but it doesn't try to evolve us out of that situation, right? It doesn't say, yeah, let's push through this. We're going to get better. Big picture. We'll be much happier on the other side of this. Like the intellect never says that, right? Never does. It maintains it to the point where sometimes it maintains issues that could actually be causing us discomfort but the intellect just maintains it. It doesn't let it go. It doesn't let us break out of it. It doesn't let us step away and, improve it and have some movement. The component that does that is the intuitive part of the mind. Intuition is about motion. It's about spontaneity. It is about the healing process, right? It's tied to the rest and repair mode of your nervous system. Intellect is tied to fight, flight, or action and activity, right? So both are necessary. It's just we want to give them the right job. We don't want to just have them doing everything. We want them to do the things they're good at. And when the other part of the mind is better at something, we want to allow that to shift over and let it do its thing. Right. So with the feet, you're connecting the mind and the body. And you're also connecting with what kind of message that your energy body has sent into the earth, right? For your energy body to maintain your overall physical form, it sends messages down into the earth that then the earth responds and goes, here's what you ordered. Like you could think of the earth as the original Amazon, right? You go on, you order something, and boom, in a day or so, it's just there at your doorstep. It doesn't say, really, you're going to buy all this chocolate and ice cream? Maybe you shouldn't do that. It just gives you what you're asking for, right? Good or bad. And so by going through and putting your awareness here, we're initiating something to go through and eventually transmute. So then you work up to your bottom of your tailbone, your basic chakra. Here, you're starting to tap into your physiology. And physiology is your body's processes, but it's also tied to some of the lower emotional responses, some of the instinctive responses. More than the instinctive responses, it's the instinct has an impulse, and then the basic chakra, which is the bottom of your tailbone, carries it out, right? Like it is the part that does the automatic thinking. It is the part that does the automatic behavior. It is tied just to survival. That's all it's trying to really do, is just trying to survive and kind of be comfortable somewhat, right? Then we go over to that area on the left side below your ribs. And this is tied to the spleen, not just the physical spleen, but the spleen chakra. And here we're tapping into the unconscious. The spleen is associated with unconscious desires, unconscious drives. So a lot of times we have drives or desires that we're not really super aware of, but we act on them because they're laying deep within the unconscious. And so it motivates us to do certain things. But if you ask a person, why did you do that? They're like, I don't know. Like I just, and they'll come up with some reason. But part of it is these desires are deep within the spleen. So if you are wounded at a particular time, you were traumatized, somebody hurt your feelings, you feel a little less than, you feel afraid. Some of that is in the spleen because it's embedded deep within the unconscious, right? So from the spleen, we go to that low back area, right? The backside of the navel. This center is known as the Mingmen. And this area transmutes the physiology of your body, right? It transmutes the negative tendencies within the body. And so this is actually one of the first areas where healing can genuinely start to happen. In Kabbalistic teachings, this is associated with the planet Mercury and the archangel Raphael, right? And Raphael is considered the archangel associated with healing. And the reason why it's associated with healing is that it is the center that transmutes the physiology, like your physiological drives, your primal drives, those drives that are embedded deep within the unconscious. Now, Another aspect of this area, the Mingmen, the low back area, is, believe it or not, it's tied to like accurate perception, right? When this area is unregulated or maybe congested or has some blockages in it, it's hard for you to see things clearly because that center is constantly taking energy from your lower centers and shooting it up towards your head, right? And so what happens is if there's a lot of negativity in this center, it shoots that negativity up and it gets partially cleaned up, but part of it still affects your brain, right? It's part of it still affects your mental body. And so this center, this low back area, even though it's so far from the brain, is actually the part of the energy body that balances out the two sides of your brain. So if we're too much in our intellectual mind and we lack intuition, right? Then this center is going to be the part that starts to bring these two pieces together, right? Now, if you have that tendency for, which we all do to a certain extent, that automatic behavior, that automatic thinking, that just reactive behavior, that is also associated with this Mingmen. It gets super overactivated, right? And so it throws energy up, but it's not a good quality of kind of energy, right? So it causes to stay stuck in the intellect. So by going through and doing this process to the point where you get there, you've addressed the physiology, you've looked at the unconscious, you're starting to look at unconscious drives and desires. Then you go to the low back area that starts to have a transmutation process on that physiology and then begins to balance out the two sides of the brain. Then you move up to the crown, which is the center that affects the brain. And whatever aspect is there in the intellect is then starting to be purified, right? So if you have negative thinking, repetitive thinking, like maybe ideas or concepts or opinions that maybe are causing you harm, when the energy moves up here, it starts to break it down. The thing that we don't take into account a lot of times is how much of our thoughts, how much of our feelings are impacted by other people. A lot of times we think our thoughts are generated purely by ourselves, and then maybe we're influenced a little by others. But probably half the thoughts in our head are influenced or just a byproduct of other people. They're not being generated purely by our mind, right? They're reactions to the environment, to what people said, to people's projections. All kinds of issues can cause us to have other people's thoughts in our heads. And so the more that we individualize, right, the more that we increase our connection to the soul, the more that we are of our true nature and less being impacted by the collective unconscious or by the impact of other people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So by going through and doing this, you're unwinding the aspects that contribute to the program that's running in the aura, right? And so just even doing this process without even doing the next step that we're about to do, right, starts to have an unwinding effect. It helps you to break out of patterns. It helps you to break the cycle of what is happening because we're actually working the aspect of light, right? Light has to do with cycles, right? There are cycles that go through your body and a couple of times in a minute. There are cycles that go maybe twice in a day. There are cycles that go once a day. And then we have these long cycles that go maybe for weeks or a month at a time and then cycle through again, right? So we have all kinds of different cycles that go through our body. All of these are tied to divine intelligence or what we would call divine light. So when we start to unwind these things, we're increasing a deeper connection to divine intelligence or the creative aspect, which at Astora is what we call the white light or divine light, right? So we're going to step over to the mystic vibration here in just a moment, and we're going to do this process again, and then we're going to do the next step, right? So we're posting the link. We're going to jump over to the mystic vibration, and we're going to continue our practice with the auric programming.